Raurangatira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Ka nui te koe me te hari, ki te haere mai, ki konei, I tere nā rā mō te kaupapa nei. Hei kaupapa rangatira, hei taonga ngā tamariki. Nau mai haere mai te Aotearoa, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. What a beautiful morning here in Rotorua, and I couldn't think of a better way to start the day than hearing some beautiful violin playing, Maddie. I learnt the violin as a child, and it definitely does feed the soul. So it's been great to have the opportunity to have a chat to some of you over breakfast, and really enjoyed the conversations we've had. I think one of the wonderful opportunities of an international conference like this, and I want to commend you for organising it, is the opportunity to share ideas, innovation and initiatives so that more of our citizens across the globe can benefit. And of course, the very people that your focus on is our tamariki, or our children. And I think that's vitally important work that you do. So I want to commend Pillars for organising this, but also for the work that you do each and every day. So I took up the corrections portfolio in December, and so far have visited more than half of our prisons, as well as our community corrections facilities. What's important though is I also look through the lens of my other portfolios. So as well as the Prime Minister giving me corrections, I'm the Associate Minister of Education, the Associate Minister of Tertiary Education, Skills and Employment, and the Associate Minister of Primary Industries, which of course is our largest employer across the country, with 1 in 6 people employed in the primary industries. So my approach to the job is probably quite different than some of my colleagues or my predecessors. I don't have a history in the justice sector at all, so it's fair to say that I have a very open mind. I'm focused on what works, I'm focused on what doesn't work, and I can see that from the first day that someone comes into our prison, it's not my job as a minister to judge them. The judge has done that job. Our job from that point forward is to prepare them to go home. They do go home to their families and their communities, and they are part of our families and our communities, and their children are our children. So we absolutely have to do a better job. And I'm not going to stand here in front of you and say we have all the answers, because clearly we don't. And anyone who's, for those of you from overseas who have looked a bit of a picture of New Zealand, some of our statistics are definitely not anything to write home about. The one in particular that disturbs me and my justice colleagues the most is our increasing levels of family violence. And that is one of the most significant impacts clearly on a child's life and their future. So it's a bit of a double whammy. But if we think about the children that have a parent in prison, we're not only focused on that parent and making them a better person, it's also how can we better interact with their children to give them a better chance. And just recently I was talking to a couple of mums who had come out or were on the way out of the prison system, and one of the mums had, she'd put in so much effort to turn her life around and was on a very, very challenging reintegration program that she's confident will keep her on the straight and narrow. But 2 of her children, one was appearing in court that very week, and one of her daughters was already incarcerated. So the challenge for us is how do we put the fence at the top of the cliff, as well as dealing with the ambulance at the bottom. And I know there are some that would say, you know, don't worry about the bottom, focus on the top, but actually as a government we have to do both. And one of the things I'm proud of our government doing was putting in place what we call better public service targets. And I would go and talk to secondary school principals and say, what are you doing about helping us achieve our early childhood targets? And they'd say, not my job. Well, absolutely it is your job, because the greater participation in early childhood, the greater the likelihood that child will succeed through primary school and intermediate school, the less likely you are to have a child or a learner that you can't then respond to adequately. And the higher the risk, that is one more child that will fail in school, and of course you know what happens after that. So it is about how do we work together in better ways to get better outcomes. And you're going to hear tomorrow from Corrections about some of the initiatives that we do have underway in New Zealand. And one of the things that has hugely impressed me is the dedication of our corrections staff. And I see my job as the Minister is to support the work they do each and every day. Because you don't sign up to be a corrections officer if you don't think you can make a difference to prisoners' lives. And so I applaud them and I back them, but it's also completely artificial to think that corrections can do it on their own. Last week was a really exciting week in New Zealand's history because corrections signed an accord with the Kingitanga. So the Kingitanga represent a third of New Zealand's Indigenous population, and they have recognised that they need to be in this boots and all. They need to be in it from a prevention perspective in terms of supporting young people getting a great education. They need to be in their boots and all in terms of supporting the families, and one of the first projects off the blocks is one with mothers and their children, and also about supporting their reintegration. So there are some exciting things happening, and I'm sure over the next couple of days you're going to share even more examples of what's happening. You'll learn more about what's happening in New Zealand, but also share some of the examples. I mean, the history of corrections with pillars has been really important. I know, having spoken to you, some of it hasn't gone as smoothly as you have liked, but my commitment to you is to keep the door open. And where there are fantastic initiatives in some of our prisons, I want to see them in all of them. So where there might be a fantastic initiative that's been piloted in one area, I want to see how that we can push that across every prison in the country, because that's where we will get a different outcome. We're not on a great track right now, but at the end of the day, it's by trying things differently, initiatives like the Accord with the Kingitanga, that we will change the result. And if we think about just last week, I was at the graduation of 6 inmates in Rimutaka who had completed extensive literacy and numeracy qualifications. And somebody said to me afterwards, why did you waste your time doing that? And I said, because those young men have a future, and we owe them a future. It is not just for them, it is for their children. And the interview afterwards with one of the prisoners was he wanted to improve his ability to read because he has 8 grandchildren. And he may have missed the opportunity to have an impact with his children, but there is a window of opportunity that he is unwilling to let go by to have a wonderful relationship with his grandchildren. So thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with you. and I really did value being able to chat over breakfast. Those are great opportunities. I know there'll be more that comes out of your work here today, and see me as a partner in your work. We won't always agree, but where we do, I promise you I will push harder and faster to get the results for the very New Zealanders we all serve. So thank you very much.